And here we are. This is the 2019 gaming machine. Technically 2018 because I actually upgraded. All these components were sometime late last year. A lot of the components are actually the same as the 2016 machine. I did a couple of obvious upgrades, like you can see right there, the EVGA GeForce GTX 1070. It's a good card. I really highly recommend it. The 1070 has always in my sort of the 70 line in EVGA graphics cards has always been sort of the value oriented one, and like sometimes you can get a little bit more bang for your buck if you get the right superclocked version. But again, it's all stuff you can technically do at home. You just want to make sure that the actual coolant system or solution that they have is able to handle it. And that's actually a pretty... It's hard to really show what it looks like, but the coolant rails there and the setup they have is actually pretty good in the EVGA cards. And aside from that, there's Corsair, I think H55. I might be wrong. I'll add that in the description of the video after I get a chance to take a look at it. Obviously, still the same Hero motherboard. I believe that was the same in the video that I had. I don't think I've upgraded it. It's just the Hero 8. So it's carrying a 6700 RPM, sorry, 6700K CPU. I've been thinking at some point in the near future of upgrading if I end up having enough time and extra money. But honestly, there's not a huge amount of excuse for or reason for it, essentially. In that, if I'm going to be upgrading, I'm going to be building like a massive 4K machine. And honestly, this is good enough that for 4K you actually can get CPU bottlenecks. But in the meantime, honestly, this is going to be good enough. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, Corsair 2666 megahertz RAM. It's good stuff. What is with this autofocus? Pick a spot and focus on it, camera. Yeah, I apologize. It's a new camera, and so it's Canon SL2. It's a good camera, but it doesn't really like low light, so basically I'm once again having to use supplemental light. And it also has a very good autofocus system, but it tends to get finicky over what it decides to autofocus on, and then it keeps trying to adjust its on. Apparently there's a way to fix that, but I'll have to look into that as I get more used to this setup. But regardless, yeah, so like there's that. There's I guess that's all on this side. It's not a whole lot to speak of. There's obviously new fans. AF camera. My God, camera. Pick a spot, focus. There we go. Okay, so I apologize for it being so dusty. I sort of wiped down the outside of the machine, but I didn't really get on the inside because I haven't had an air canister for a while. And yeah, they're like I believe AF fans, because from the front fans I just really want to bring in as much general air as possible. I could be wrong on that because I can't remember if I got AF or whatever the other one is, DF, the sort of direct flow ones. It actually might be DF. It might be whatever. I think the term is DF because as I recall, I was trying to get the air to just pull it. Well, actually, no, it's AF because I remember it's blocked on the front, so it has to be AF. Yeah, so I will show you the other side in just a second. That's by the way, that's a new power supply. Good power supply. My last EVGA actually burnt out on me. It was like still sort of working, but under any sort of large amount of power requirement, it would just sort of, the machine would just click off. Something would go wrong. And it's actually second issue at time I've had an issue with in a row with an EVGA power supply. So I'm giving them one more shot. I actually like EVGA, but they did me wrong. Anyways, to the other side. Okay, well, what can I say about this? Obviously, you can see right there, there's a SSD. Not a massive one, it's 250 gigs. Down there, you can see the hard drive. 500 gig hard drive, nothing major to write home about. I didn't want to go 1 terabyte because in my experience, 1 terabyte, it just, because it has to search through more place and very often, sorry, more place, a minor stroke there. Because it has to search through more space, and generally speaking has the same amount of platters, you end up having just more time for a larger hard drive. So, this is not something I've confirmed, it's just something in my experience that has always been the case. So I go 500 gigs because it's sort of a decent entry-level amount, although realistically, what I need to do is I'm probably going to have to upgrade that, get an SSD, that is instead of 500, sorry, an SSD instead of 250 gigs, I'd go from that to maybe 500 gigs, and then I would have supplementary hard drive space, so a 500 gig and another 500 gig, for a total of like 1 terabyte and 500 gigabytes. Which in my experience, like I might need more of that because I'm fooling around with videos again now, and that takes up a lot of space, especially when you're doing shooting in RAW or some sort of larger scale MP4. So I might have to consider that. Or I might just get an external or something like that. But that's the plans for the future. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to show. I do apologize about that terrible cord routing job. It actually was a lot better than that. It's just I had to do so many changes and whatnot, pull so many things out that when I put, like, when you first set up a machine, you have that sort of glow where you're like, this is your baby, you're gonna try and treat it as nicely as possible. But after you've opened the thing up 80 different times and you've had to like swap out multiple components and completely dismantle it and put it back together again, you lose a little bit of that ember of motivation. But yeah, I will end up fixing that at some point, I promise. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of lights. There's some lights on the graphics card, as well as there's some on the front on those fans. And I might end up souping that up at some point, but in the meantime, because I'm still, until I move back out again, which is happening quite shortly, I finished university finally. Until I move out again, the problem is when you're inside a one-room area, and you basically have to sleep in that same room, it's a little bit annoying to have this giant sort of beacon of lights coming from the corner of your room underneath your desk. It definitely pisses the heck off out of my girlfriend. Yeah, okay, I'll skip ahead to what it looks like lit up, and we'll take it from there.